So, so that you go with a lot of hope, that is not as a career hope.
Yeah.
You go to the university stating, thinking that you would repay for the society, how to make use of yourself for the society contribution.
Yeah. Social movements and yeah.
So that you go to JNU.
Yeah.
So that instead of commenting on different things, how you saw JNU and what are the things you did in JNU? You have been staying there for
10 years, almost 10 years.
So 10 years, important events and your association with different movements, how the movement, why your association with Dalit movements or left movement, whichever movement.
It's a very interesting phenomena I discovered in JNU. First of all, I was very excited. I will write a paper and I can be an author and writer. It's a very romantic, naive idea about academics I had, because humanities was not my experience in studying. I studied science, I studied medical science. So the terms, the books I have seen, and well, I was already familiar with some of the Ghelomvet's work, Jyotiba Phule's work, well, writings and speeches of Dr. Ambedkar himself inspired me while I was reading. And that time the movie, there were many local movies in Marathi published by some directors. So I have seen that. So I could see how Dr. Ambedkar went to Columbia, London School of Economics and studied. So all those sort of ideas were in my mind. But when I actually encountered with these humanities, well, personally I faced a big problem of English language. And I discovered that it's not just in my case, most of the students come to JNU from village and local background, they face the problem of language, the problem of English. And it's very interesting. I find a two stream of students in JNU, from the Delhi class and the metro class students, who were very efficient in writing entrance, very efficient in, very smart in presenting themselves, but I often find the content is quite shallow. They are very good in language, but there is no content. But on the other hand, the students coming from rural or the village background, they are very rich in their experience. Their folk stories, their narratives, their experiences, their discriminations, and their sort of content in their thinking is very creative and original, sometimes quite striking, astonishingly bright, but they couldn't put in the frame and the institutional sort of fashionable language, so-called language, to articulate themselves, and they always face the problem. So I was not exceptional in that. I also faced the same problem. There was a professor in arts and aesthetics. I asked a question, sir, what will be the future if I get admission into this school? Because I'm very much interested in arts, aesthetics, philosophies, experiences and cultural symbols and iconographies they represent, and how do they use politically the symbols and icons. That was my area, religion, myth. And I was not articulate as I am now. I could able to speak some of this content to her. And she said, there is no future. Why are you coming here? You are in a very good job. You go back to your original or your previous job. You will face unemployment here. You will face, there are no jobs in this area. And what will you get out of this degree? So that kind of discouragement at first stance I faced. But I was so determined, and I met Professor H.S. Shivprakash. He's a very well-known noted poet in Kannada literature, and I encountered with him first time, and he was very much interested in bhakti movements, saint movements. So he interacted with me on the basis of untouchable saints in Maharashtra and lower caste saints like Tukaram, Chokamela, and other lower caste saints. And he said that, look at, they were not educated, they didn't know English, look at the Kabir. So that's how he tried to inspire me. So I got some clue there. So it's not only the case with me, we can always overcome this problem. we can always keep on going. Whether we'll get a job or not, that's another thing, but my passion and aspiration was strong to learn about these philosophies and literature and humanities, and precisely it came from Phule and Ambedkar. So I wanted to study them in more deeper sense. So that made my sort of keep on going ahead from that point of view. So
okay, then how about the movements? Which were the movements were there? What shaped you after going there? You were already shaped, but that was a basic stage. But how was the students' movement involvement in it?
Well, then I encountered through these experiences. You are automatically located in which class of student you are in. So I could very easily feel that I was not smart enough to present myself in terms of what I think, and not only just me as a subjective, but most of my other classmates were facing the same problem. So it's interesting, I opted a course on tribal visual culture. It was taught by some very profound scholars and good scholars. Jyotinder Jain was one of the scholar among them. So they were narrating experiences which I could very easily able to relate, but I'm not able to speak. I'm not able to sort of speak in their language. So and most of the students coming from the village background, they face the same problem, and they were not able to sort of entertain themselves up to the standards, though they were very close to those visuals, those paintings, those narratives, those stories and things like that. And from where there was one event I very well remember. Ford Foundation came in our school, and they introduced a huge grant about tribal and folk literature and Dalit culture and things like that. But most of the leaders, most of the initiators, or the people who were availing their grant were all metropolitan or elite students and teachers. And we opposed that stand of Ford Foundation grant in our school. And there was a big battle among two groups who wanted to avail the facilities of money and publish and write in a very qualified journals. But the students who were actually living that life, they were not part of it. So they couldn't even participate for what the money has been used. And we opposed that. And I myself face the threat from my dean, School of Arts and Aesthetics at that time. It was 2003 to 2005. In those period, and he threatened me to rusticate from the school, and we burned the effigy of him in front of school, and we protested against it, and there was a great battle. And at point of time we took the risk of our degrees as well. We were at a risk of our degrees. So and that time I encountered with some left movement called SFI or AISA or DSU, left and ultra left. So I was a bit sympathetic with them, but as far as I was already inspired by Dr. Ambedkar, Phule, Shau Maharaj and Periyar Ramaswamy, these leaders, and Buddha himself. So I could see the contradiction between the values I was believed in for the sake of emancipation for the tribals or Adivasis or Dalits, and the approach of left movement I experienced in JNU, especially among students movement and students banners. So then I discovered a movement called UDSF, United Dalit Student Forum. They were on some actors.
UDSF,
yeah.
You're saying that some experience you had with the SFI, AISA, but what is it? Could you just
I find the experience of left student movement is more sort of utilitarian. They were using the values of tribals and Dalits. In fact, Dalit students but I don't think they were sort of even face that kind of dignity in their struggle in left movement. So I will tell you, the poster culture in JNU, the best posters are created or produced by the lower caste, in fact Dalit students. The best pictures and the best portraits of Karl Marx, Lenin, Bhagat Singh, Phule and Ambedkar were produced by Dalit students. And I find that when election comes, they used sort of the cultural mobilization, postering and issues and the discrimination against them. But the leaders were always, the leadership always been in the upper caste, in the hands of upper caste students, the elite students, because they were very well in speaking in English and articulating themselves. But Dalits are more in creative in their talent. So there are very easy excuse for them because they can't speak or they were not articulate enough to represent the issues. So I always find the Dalits are always co-opted by the lefts or in the rights. I have encountered in ABVP there are very active Dalit students, especially from Rajasthan, Bihar, because there are very righteous movements are very strong in those states. And in Kerala or in Maharashtra or in Bengal, the left movements were very strong. So Dalits were very creative from those states. But as such, when election comes or post comes, later on the scene changes because of the Dalit movements, and this I would say is precisely because of UDSF. Because UDSF was a very instrumental in strengthening that. I will talk more about that. But the left experiences is like that. They always use the issues to empower themselves. And the issues, the strong issues were against discrimination about Dalits. There was a student called Kaushal Kishore Singh from Uttar Pradesh. He was not my friend earlier, but I was active later on. I gave up. I disillusioned from the left student movement in JNU. I gave up that. I never been part of left movement, but I was sympathetic and tried to engage with them in some dramas, theater and some cultural programs like that, because I myself was sort of could able to play some instruments. So they even used me, or rather, well, they asked me and I allow myself to be part of them to some extent, but I find that that's not useful for me as such. In ultimate sense, I need sort of, there is a voice of Marx on the women's issue or discrimination issue or students issue. There is a voice of Savarkar and Vivekananda. There is a voice of Golwankar and rightist forces, but where is the voice of Dr. Ambedkar? It was very marginally used by left movement and the right movement, but not what exactly Dr. Ambedkar wanted to say. So they will use a word called class for the left, and they will use the word called nation or culture or the dignity in the right wing from Dr. Ambedkar's vocab. But what Dr. Ambedkar's self-respect movement, the be aware of the Brahminical forces, be aware of the, even Periyar says that left is a cobra under the grass and right is a cobra above the grass. No one used that analogies. So Dalits are pieced up in between. So that's what my experience about student movement in JNU.
You can talk about